chat. What's going on with your jawline? Julian here from Jawline Theory. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about genetics and the role it plays in the development of your physique, in particular, the shape, right? I see a lot of guys and women going to the gym, doing their thing, and that's all good. However, I think we've been sold this idea that if we go to the gym, we're going to look a certain way without really considering the genetic implication. For instance, one of the best starting points you can have as a male is to have that coveted X-frame. So what do I mean by X-frame? I'm talking about wide shoulders, specifically long clavicular bones, smaller waist, and long legs, especially if you're in the 5'10", 5'11", 6 feet, 6 feet 1 category. Aesthetically, once you can develop those muscle bellies, you look a whole lot better. You almost look like a comic book character. In fact, if you look at our current and previous Olympians, whether they're men's physique or open bodybuilding, you'll find that they generally fall within that category and in terms of height, and they also possess the coveted X-frame. Now, let's say genetically speaking, you do not possess the X-frame. That's absolutely fine. But I think if you don't have that coveted X-frame, you need to be cognizant of the type of training you're going to engage in. For instance, if you tend to have a narrow collarbone and a thicker waist, well then why would you do exercises that would put on significant size on your waistline? For instance, former Mr. Olympia Jay Cutler, he knew that right off the rip. He did not have that sort of aesthetic that most Olympians possessed, so he had to be really smart with his training. In fact, in an interview, I remember him saying that he avoided doing things like heavy dumbbell rows for back because it put on a lot of size on his waist, therefore throwing off his aesthetic. Another thing he had done is that he focused on developing the width of his shoulders, especially the medial delt, so that he would have that sort of like V taper. So it's really important if you don't have those sort of attributes to really pay attention to your training and to make sure you're sort of headed in that direction. Don't just go to the gym and follow what everyone else is doing. It may not work for your particular genetics. Also, taller guys, let's say taller as in 5'9", 5'10", and up, may need to work on their legs a little more. Just because you need extra leg workouts, whether it's the quads, the hamstrings, and the calves, in order to balance out the upper body. I find that once you hit the 5'10", 5'11" range, and depending on where you're from, your legs kind of lag behind, which means that you need to hit them a little more frequent, a little more harder, and really pay attention to their growth because they may lag behind. And when you start off as a newbie, your upper body tends to grow a whole lot faster, and sometimes you may be skipping a few leg days here and there, especially if you're starting off. So just remember to hit quads and hamstrings on a regular, if not twice a week, allowing them to play catch up. Now, another aspect a lot of guys tend to ignore is the whole posterior chain. And I'm talking about things like the traps and the rear delts, the back, the lower back, the glutes, the hamstrings, the calves. Guys tend to focus more on the frontal aspect of their bodies and totally ignore the back. In fact, contracting a lot of those muscles back there seems to be really hard when it comes to developing the mind-muscle connection. So just remember that when you're training anything that's back there, it requires a whole lot more concentration. So you may want to slow down the tempo, feel the contraction, be conscious of the mind-muscle connection. That's really important, especially for things like back. There's so many muscles back there, and the more you can isolate different regions of the back, the more detailed your back is going to look. Now, one more aspect in regards to developing an aesthetically pleasing physique is the shape of your muscles, the muscle bellies. This is something really important because, again, I see a lot of guys at the gym who look incredible. And when you really analyze their physique, it has a lot to do with the roundness of their muscle bellies. This is why guys like Flex Wheeler, guys like Phil Heath had that appeal because their muscles were just round. Now, there's not much you can do if naturally your muscles just aren't shaped like that. This has a lot to do with the insertion and the origins of the muscle, hence genetics. But at the same time, we shouldn't beat ourselves over the head if we don't have those attributes. Visually speaking, possessing rounder muscle bellies, whether that's the shoulder, the play between the biceps and the triceps, and even the forearms and the chest, the rounder the better. I don't know what it is. It could be science. It could be art. You'll see a lot of artists who like to draw a human body will start off by drawing circles for the shoulders, the head, the chest, The legs maybe some sort of like oval shape, and then slowly they start like morphing the shape. But it all starts with circle. The more circular your body can be, the more appealing it is. Now, despite men having a angular body compared to our female counterparts, having some roundness in there, guys like Phil Heath again and Flex Wheeler, it just looks a whole lot more impressive. If you do find that your body tends to be more on the blockier side, especially when it comes to your waistline, you want to keep a close eye on the amount of food that you are consuming, because when you eat a lot of food, when you're pushing food, your waistline can get out of control. In fact, it could actually throw off your physique even though you're doing a bulk. So you want to be conscientious of that. Another thing I notice is that if you want to keep a trim waist year round, watch out for squats, especially deep squats. Once you start hitting 405 and you're going super deep, your waistline will expand. Now, a lot of guys say, well, because you're using too many of these muscles down here. But when you're in the pit and you're trying to come up, yeah, you may have to use some external obliques and your abs just to sort of like support and push yourself upwards. Again, once you start pushing that kind of weight, your waistline will expand. So that's why I recommend, as soon as you're hitting 3-4 plate squats, keep a close eye on your waistline and maybe not go so deep. It's okay to do maybe parallels and even partial reps, but once you go super low, it's going to blow out your waist and it's going to affect your physique. Something to consider. Anyways, that is it for this video. If you like this type of content, remember to subscribe, leave a comment if you will, and hit that bell notification button. With that said, I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.